Grains closed higher on Tuesday with a mixed day in the livestock futures. Brad Kooima with Kooima Kooima Varilek joining us. And Brad, corn and soybeans, a big up day. And of course, we were putting some weather premium in there, weren't we?
I sure think so. The forecast, flipping warmer, drier for not this week, but the week after, I think puts at least a portion here of this, particularly the northern corn belt, maybe at risk from the standpoint of if you're sitting on a deal hand to mouth where you don't have a lot of subsoil moisture, which is the case for an awful lot of the corn belt in the north, 7/10 of rain or an inch of rain is not going to carry you very far, particularly during pollination. So I think weather, maybe to a slighter degree, some of the news that was coming out of Ukraine, Russia. But I think after the weekly reversal up that we had last week on the corn, we set the stage a bit for this kind of corrective action. And I think that's what we had thanks to the weather.
So technically, that December corn contract right up into some key moving averages and resistance areas. If we get above that, can we get the funds to cover that short position?
Yes. And I wished I could tell you exactly where that is. There was a bunch of resistance, the 40-day, the 38% retracement, old levels here, that 537.5 that we've gapped through before from an algorithm that would be important. It sounds to me, and of course I can't read their order book, of course, but we may have to get someplace above halfway back, which is at 555 level. So I think we're going to have to kind of fight tooth and nail to see if we can get these funds to cover. I think it's going to be a little bit of I think we got a hard job to get them to cover. I think that some of these guys are so entrenched and got a big lead in these short positions. It's going to be harder than you'd like to hear.
Soybeans trading the weather, and we have a lot less wiggle room there, obviously, and we're getting into that critical time period for soybeans. How much weather premium do we need to put into that market, do you think?
If I can erase from my memory that last report where we went from, gosh, what are we going to do with 150 million carryout to, oh, never mind, we think it's 300 now.
Yeah.
To me, we're knocking at the door of taking out this $14 level, which has been massive resistance. Okay. Something like that happens. If we put a little stress into the crop in August, which everybody out there that's listening would, I think, unless you're in Georgia or something like that, but in the northern part of the central corn belt, August is the weather that determines bean yield for a lot of us here. If that gets stressy, I don't know, I think we can probably get someplace north of 15. But let's see if we can conquer this $14 to $14.25 level before we get too carried away here, I guess.
Yeah, we closed just right under it here again today, didn't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get one weather flip, and all of a sudden we're back to, oh shucks, I should have sold them at $13.90 again, right?
So, I know. Cattle market, impressive day in the live cattle futures, considering what corn and feeder cattle futures were doing.
And if you sat through it today, Michelle, it was just one of those days where it just ground higher. I mean, if you're bullish, if you were short, you didn't even get a 30-cent correction. I mean, it was just like it just beat you to death. Very impressive action in that way, and impressive because with the sharply lower feeder cattle, typically we'd have broke the live cattle with it, and we didn't. And I think we're looking at a couple of things for background, I guess. Last week I talked about the Goldman roll, all these funds, how many longs they had, and how are we going to move all those longs without hurting the August, and yada, yada, yada. Well, we did it. In fact, the August gained on the back months during most of the roll. Extremely impressive. And the way the cash market acted here Friday with 188 trade and some of those cattle getting picked up already. You got a packer that didn't buy very many cattle last week. I think he's in the same short bought boat that he was last week. Yeah, I think everybody kind of feels like right now we've got a little leverage, we got a little momentum, and still trading at a pretty steep discount to the northern cash.
Yeah, and the north obviously is current. How current are you?
I would say that we are more current than we were in 2014 for the middle of July. Honestly, yes, here in my area. I don't know, when I'm watching, and not that this is an end all, but when the producer gets to the point where he decides, you know what, this thing's going to be good forever. Cost of gains $1.15. I'm going to get $1.80. I'm going to put some weight on these cattle, or I get into some feeder cattle that have a high break even. I got to figure out a way to, that we're nowhere near that right now. But right now we got a guy that I only feed calves. I've missed this whole big market. Now my calves are finally fat. I want these $300 plus head winners. So that's where we are now. But I mean, if we could drop a marker on the road to figure out when that mentality changes. I mean, I remember 2015 clearly, and that's what happened there, where we fed our way to a big problem and lost all our leverage, and it was a wreck, the second half of 15. So right now, I think we're sailing along pretty nice shape. We do have calves for sale. We do have allegedly poor demand. And the one thing I should mention from a cautionary standpoint, I am hearing some kill cuts that are real.
I was going to ask you about that. I've been hearing that too. So
yeah, right. There's one outfit that's taken a day off. I know there's another one that's taken a couple of hours here and there. Otherwise, this has always been just so much length, whatever threat. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you don't have enough cattle too, by the way. But if they get serious about it, they'll try to back some cattle up, and the packer will try to gain some leverage back if he can somehow. At this point, demand's been really pretty decent from all the naysayers about how high the beef is and how fast it's going to break. It's not too bad a shape yet, in my opinion.
Okay, so last week on Wednesday, we thought maybe that was a blow off top, and obviously the technicals don't mean a whole lot when you're in a supply situation that's this tight, right?
Once in a while, it pays to have manure on your boots, right?
Right.
I think once in a while, the fundamentalist does see happen what he thought should happen, or she should happen. I guess I don't know. I don't want to get over cocky here because the market's super high, guys. I mean, do what you got to do. Right. I find myself with more puts than I've had maybe in my career. I want to let the market have upside potential, but I certainly don't want to have some sort of a black swan type situation. Take away what finally, where we got some money made back here after really basically 3 or 4 years where it hasn't hardly been profitable at all to feed cattle. So, I like the way the market's set up. We spent 3 years setting it up, but let's use our head a little bit with some risk management.
You bet. And the hogs, the August contract obviously is at a discount now to where the futures are. And so we got a little uptick there, back months lower. Ultimately, is the market got much more upside in it, do you think, though?
I don't think so. But I feel like I brought my fiddle to a football game sometimes when I'm trying to trade hogs, right? Very difficult for me to predict. It seems like the cash market seems to be easily moved around. I would agree that August at a discount is worth noting. I would also note that October's a mere $15 less than the August look a little weird to me too.
Right.
We still do feed a few hogs around here. I keep hearing about how cheap iso-wean pigs are, which would tell me that the supply is large, right?
Right.
And so, I kind of look down the road and have to be a little bit long-term negative. I'm a little concerned about our export situation with China. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of a hedge first guy when it comes to the hog thing, but I have not been trading particularly well over there, to be honest.
Well, like anybody has. So, all right. Thanks for joining us, Brad Kooima with Kooima Kooima Varilek, and that's Markets Now.